Okay, looks like I've got some sound, so we'll get started here. I know I'll have a few people join me a little bit later. We'll start at 12:30. We'll go through some housekeeping here, and again, we're going to work on case number 3. So I want to show everybody where we are in terms of the class, what's going on, and what is due. Today is the 29th. And the following are the few text chapter 11 and 12 quiz that's due by 5. You've got XLS, the Excel cases 8 and 9. We've done those already, and so you should have already uploaded those. Now, like I said before, we're working ahead, so we're going to be working on the access cases, and we're going to work on access case number 3. Of course, it's not due till 26th of April, but we're working ahead because you're going to have some downtime to do some work on assignments. All righty, now I'm going to go over to the modules section. We'll take a look at this for just a sec, and we'll come over here. We are in module 8 or week 8. Alrighty, and we are here at module 8, the 27th and the 29th. Of course, today's the 29th. Now, as I said before, the Excel cases 8 and 9 are due. We've already done those. We worked ahead because we knew we would probably need some time over here to work on access, which we probably will. And then we've got this one quiz that's due today at 5 p.m. So you'll want to have that stuff uploaded and done. Now, we have the business intelligence. I've got some resources for you there, as well as on analytics and the easy Excel regression. So that's some stuff for you to take a look at, and then we'll come back and on the 3rd and on the 5th, and don't forget we will do on the 2nd, the recording for the 2nd will also for the other section of this course will be used for the 3rd, okay? So we'll go from there. Now, again, when you look at these recordings, if you don't sit in on the live screencast, which a lot of us don't, for one reason or the other, you always want to make sure if you have a question in the video that you write down the hour and the minute point where you have the question, so I can try to answer it to you, answer that question in a more effective way. Of course, if you're in here when I'm doing the screencast and we're live, you're good to go as well. Okay, let's go over to the files section, and we're going to be working on case database case number 3. That's over in the Solve It textbook. It's page 182. It's a Braxis office furniture. And what this case revolves around is working with an automated bill of materials. And, you know, as usual, the authors give us some information about the company. And then there at the bottom of 183, they start to tell us all of the different components that are in these tables. These folks make tables, okay? And then at the bottom of 183, they start to give us a list of all of the things that go into those different models. They have components, and certain different numbers of the components fit into different models. And I'll show you that here in just a second. But they give you the detail for that over on page 183 and in 184. Okay, and then they're an assembler. They also manufacture tops and legs, and so then they also give us information the vendors they use, who they purchase that stuff from. Okay, now they give us a partial bill of materials, and when we scroll down here to the Solve It 6.0 files, we're gonna see that. And these solution files are actually the solution files for the access cases. And we'll open those up. And here's a Braxis. And what I'm going to do is this, just to make sure we don't have any problems. I'm going to go ahead and put a Braxis on my desktop. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and open it up, because I want to make sure that I save this file to the environment in which I'm working, that is my device. If I don't, I'm just going to create a system file that won't save for me, and I won't be able to open it either. Now, as usual, just navigating around, we've got all the objects here, and we always want to choose that. You have a choice in terms of what objects you want to see, and I always click all access objects. Now, this is supposed to be the solution file, and so I'm going to show you here. We'll open this up, okay? And here's what we've got. We've got these part names, okay? And we're going to run some queries. There are some queries there, and we'll kind of deconstruct them. We'll do a little bit of reverse engineering on them. No big deal. And we've focused a lot on building tables, okay? And so we're going to do that again. Now, right here at the data sheet view, here's what we see. We have a part code, then the name of the part, okay? Then the different models, all right, per, so for example, this part code S2 S2 347, if we're making the Empire model, it takes 24 of those, 24 for the Classic, you get the drift. So we have basically what we would call a dimension table, and that is because we have attributes that we're interested in: the part code, the part name, and then the model. Then we have some measures, or what we call measures columns: units in stock and unit cost. Okay, and so we have a little bit of work to do with this table. Now, as usual, we have two ways to drill down on this thing to work on it. Okay. And we can either click up here, okay, or we can click down here into the design view. Remember, this is the table, okay, that I got from the files section. Okay, I'll go back up here. All right, and I came down to the Solve It 6.0 solution files, and that has all of those different database cases that we're working on, and we're working on Abraxas. Alrighty, now I'm going to open this back up, and I'm going to save this file. Okay, I'm going to save it as a database. Okay, and as an access database, and I'm going to save it as yeah, we'll close the objects. Yes. And I'm going to save it as Abraxas. I'm just going to put my name on it, Harmon Keith, that's all. And make sure it's on my desktop so it's easy to find and get to on my device. Okay. Now, I've got to enable some content, but no big deal. We're good to go. Now, what we have here, again, let me open the table up. Okay, and let's look at it in design. In the design, there are some issues here in terms of this table that we have to do some thinking about. First of all, we have a part code. Okay, hi there, and as I have, glad to have you aboard. And I started about 10, 11 minutes ago, so you can jig back to get it. We go into the Solve It 6.0 files. Go into the zip files go in the files section of Canvas and go into the Solve It student files and the solution files, and you'll find Abraxas. We're working on case number 3. It's called, the company called Abraxas, and in the textbook that case starts over on page 182. And we're kind of working through. We're going to work through the tasks for this case, but there's some things we're going to work on as well. As I've said before. We're going to focus a lot on building tables, because if you don't build good tables, you're going to get junk, or you're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to get a lot of anomalies with the data. So we're looking at this very first field. It's the part code. All right, and we see that it's not required. All right. Well, that's kind of stupid, because we should never have data. We should never have a field in a record that is not required. Then don't have the field. Let me go back up top for a sec. I'll save that. When I talk about a record, I'm talking about these as we go down the rows, okay? When I talk about a column or a dimension or a variable, okay, or a measure, which is something numeric, you know, we're talking about the combination of those makes a record of those columns and those rows. Just like in Excel, the column and a row provides you a unique cell. It's the same thing here, except the combination of these creates the record. So we've got these part codes, so we'll go back down here to the design view, and we require them. It's silly to not require them, okay? One of the problems we want to avoid is what we call the problem of null values, and that is you open up a report, you run a query, or you open up a report, and there are missing values. You don't know if it means 0, because 0 and null are not the same. You don't know if someone just simply didn't fill it out. So you always want to make sure that the record, it can't be saved unless you have all the required information. And if you don't require the part code, don't even put it in there. Now, I realize we're working on tiny baby little models, but if you start talking about, a company that has, does 100 million in business, for example, or 50 million in business, you're going to have hundreds of thousands of records. And that starts to add up. It starts to take some money. It starts to take its toll in terms of moving all that data around. Plus, it's just simply good business practice to make sure you get only the data that you need to capture. Now, we're going to come down to the part name. And let me stop here for just a minute. There is a temptation to always make something like this a primary key. There are times when we have what one would call a natural primary key, and a part code is one of them. We don't necessarily have to make it designated as a primary key because it will naturally be unique. I doubt there's anybody out there that makes two different parts and gives them the same name. This doesn't happen. They may have the same name because they're the same type of part, but then they'll have something that designates it. So we want to require it, but we don't need to worry too much, okay, about making that a primary key. And we're going to come down to the part name, and here we are, another one of these, and we want to make sure it's required, so we'll put yes, okay. And then we come down to Empire, all right, and how many parts are needed. If we wanted to, we could put in a default value, all right. And when you see down here on the default value, we could put in those figures that are required. In other words, I don't know, was it 24 of something? One of those parts was required for the Empire model. It's okay. It's probably a little bit more work than you need to do. But the main thing is this. Now, let me also say this. Sometimes something like this model, okay, is what we call a slowly changing dimension. What that means is we're unlikely to change the components or the number of components that go into a product. As the book tells you, these folks make their own tables and legs, and then they assemble the whole table using stuff supplied by their vendors. So these folks are what one would call an assembler, okay? They take some material that they add into some stuff they make and send it out the door. Well, we're at Empire, and we want to make sure that that's required. They'll go to Classic. I want to make sure it's required too. This is just making sure that, and what this means is a record can't be saved, okay, unless it is, the record won't be saved unless you have a value in there. And here's Craftsman, okay. Now, as I've said before, databases have tables, but really the main interface for most people is a form, okay? And when, like, if you go over to Amazon and you click down on all the products and you put that's a form. Basically, you're filling out that form. It's kind of a query too, Well, it's a query embedded in a form. Let's put it like that. But on the Craftsman, we want to make sure, and then units in stock. That would be crazy if we didn't require that. So we want yes. Okay. And then we come down to unit costs, and we want that required. So far, so good. All right. And we'll go back up to the data sheet view, and I can do that by clicking here, right click, and go to data sheet view, or in the top left. And it says you have first saved the table, and they've been changed. Yeah, we understand that. So we're good to go. So now if I have a new part that comes along, I'm going to have all of that data before I can save a record. The record won't save. Okay? Now, one of the other things we do in table building is we try to idiot-proof it as much as possible. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's go down here to Empire is 24 units. Let's go back down to the design view, okay? And let's go to Empire. Now, we've made sure the record won't save unless we have that data there, okay? And we're also going to come down here and we're going to put in a default value, all right? And the default value is going to be 24 in this case. And that would be because that's how many are required, all right? So we'll always, now, if we have a particular order of tables, see, when people buy from us, they don't buy the parts, they buy an assembled table. So we're probably okay here to put 24 as the default, okay? And then we'll go back up here and that'll ask us to save it, yeah, okay? And so we just made sure, okay, that Empire is the 24 units of this 1 inch by 6 inch nut are required. Okay, and some days we'll come along, maybe they'll have a new, well, they'll probably have a new model, okay, and that will use 27, you know, who knows? But that validation rule, again, is one of those things, okay, that makes keeps to make sure that we have integrity in our data. Now, let's go over to unit cost. All right, and we'll go back into the design view. I'm still working on this one, and we're going to come to unit cost. All right, and we're going to put a on that, the default value, I think it's 50 cents. So we're going to put 0.50. Okay, and then we'll go back up to the data sheet view. And you'll notice every time I go up to the data sheet view, it says you got to save the table. Okay, so that's just how you could save the table and then go back up and look, but I just think it's easier. So we always make sure, okay, that we have a 50 cents. Now this is in here, we don't really need it, okay, because we don't have a new part, but we've got that on we've got that unit cost, and we're okay. See, this is what I'm telling you is they're wanting us to enter a figure. So let's go back here for just a second, okay? And I'm going to go back down here to design view. Okay, let's go to design view. And I'm going to put a figure, just a number in here. See, it's not going to let us save. Go back down unless we get. Okay, we'll put something in each one of these to get ourselves out of here. We'll put 0. And let's see here. We put units in stock. We have 0 and unit cost. We could put anything we want to. We'll just put 0. And this will be, I'm going to call this part, let's call it Z666. And let's call it, okay. And we'll go here and we'll put funny. See, we've put those rules in place, and it's requiring it. So that's why we see this issue. And now if we come back, I'll go back up here for a sec. If we come back up here later, all right, and we don't have all the data yet, but we've got that record created, it's now something, it's now unique, okay? So we're good to go as far as that goes. Now, this thing here, I don't know why it's giving us this. Oh, it's doing this thing. Well, let's just go back down to the design view. And we'll put the unit cost to 0, okay? Okay, up. Let's do something here. I'm going to close this table. Try to. Yeah, see, it's not going to let us save the records. So let's go back here. Now, sometimes, just like I showed you right there, it saves us from ourselves. Okay. Now, we're okay so far with this table, but we've made sure that everything is required. Okay, and we've made sure that we have the number of units, and so we're good to go as far as that goes. Now, I'm going to go back down into the design view of this, and we're going to go to Empire, and I'm here at Empire, and it's required, and I'm going to put, let's see, Empire, and I'm going to remove the default value of 24, okay, and then I can go back up, and we'll clear that out there. And then I'm going to go to the unit cost, okay, and I'm going to get rid of the default value, and we'll be fine. It'll be back to where we were, okay? Now we still have this other product we call Funny, and we haven't filled everything else out for it, so we're okay as far as that goes. Now let's go ahead and we've done a little bit more. We're going to do a little bit more work on the table, and well, before I do that, I want to take this record right here, this very last one, okay? And let's delete that record. Okay, and we're back to where we were. So you can see we can use validation rules that can kind of tie us up, but if we want to keep everything solid, you know, and we want to make sure that we have, at the least we want to do is we want to make sure stuff's required, and then we can use the validation data and so forth. Now, we've done a little bit of work with this table, but I want to do a little bit more, okay? And I want to create a drop-down menu. All right, let's go in here and open this up for a second. Now, this poses a problem for us, all right, because I may know the part name, but I don't know the part code number. I may know the part code number, but I don't know the part name. I may not know either one. So we want to create for ourselves a lookup table, and we've done this several times. So we're going to create a lookup table here so we can more easily find these parts. And as we add parts, it will just do it. So I'm going to go down to I'm going to do this. I'm going to click, let's close this off, okay? And I'm going to click create, okay? And I'm going to go into a table design, and the field name will be part, I think it's part code, and then the next one is part name, okay? And we'll go back up here. In fact, I'm wondering if it would be easier to create this doing a query. Let me close this. Let's forget this. Don't save this for a minute. We're gonna create a table using a query. I think it'll be a little bit easier for us. Click create, and let's go to query design. Okay, and I'm going to add Abraxas. Okay, and I'm going to get the part code and the part name. Okay, that's all I'm gonna select those. Now we're comfortable because we're used to working here in what we call the graphic user interface, or the design view. And we know we have the part code and the part name. Now I'm going to make, now these items will be sorted because we have part code in the far left, they're going to be sorted. The code will be in ascending order, okay? And as a default, the names will also be in the ascending order. We'll still have the part name and code linked. It's just the code will be in ascending order. Now, as you see up here, if you look in the query type, you're going to see a view. You're going to run, select here, and we see make table. Okay, and we're going to click make table, and the table name is, and we're going to call this parts lookup. Okay, we're going to call that table name will be parts lookup, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to run it. And you're about to paste 15 rows into a new table, and bingo, there's our table. Okay, now we don't have to worry about this query. We can just close it off. Now let's open up the parts lookup, and here it is. We have the part code, okay, and we have the part name. And notice, as I was said, the part code is in default. Is in ascending order. It's alphabetized, and then the part name, they're not, for a very simple reason. The part code and the part name got to go together. Okay, so we're in good shape here. We've got this parts lookup. So we're going to close this off. We'll say yes. Then I'm going to go back to the Abraxas case 3. Okay, and I'm going to go to design view. Okay, and I'm going to I'm at the parts code, and now I'm going to come down here to the field properties, and I'm going to click lookup, and then I'll see a text block, and we've done this before, not a big deal. We do combo box, and it says the row source or type, where you're going to get the data for the rows. It's from a table or query, and we're going to say the row source. This says what type of row source, so we're going to specify that. So we'll click on row source, and we'll come along to the far right, and we'll see that little blue square with the 3 dots. Okay. Now we're going to click parts lookup, and we'll add that. Now, when we do this query to create this lookup menu, whatever we put in first is the first item that will show up. The next item will, the second, the third, etc. So in this point, we're going to do part code and part name. Okay? And then we're going to run this. It'll show us what it's going to look like. We're using the query builder there. And we'll close it off. And there you'll see the SQL or the SQL that's the code that was underlying that lookup. Now I've got to come down here, and I've got column count. The bound column is 1, and then the column count is 2 because I've got 2 items within that bound column. And then the widths, and I'm going to make 1 inch. Semicolon, and then 2 inch. Okay, I'll put 1 inch, and I'm using 1 inch because I have a code, whereas for the name I got a different critter. So let's go upstairs and take a look at that. So we'll go to the datasheet view. I'll say you want to save the table, yeah. And now we have our drop down menu. So when I'm adding stuff in, I can scroll down to get the code. Okay, so it just makes it you and I, when you and I, we encounter so much stuff in our phones, the internet, etc. With drop down menus, that's basically how they're created. The whole idea is to to control how the data, you input the data. Just like I've shown you, like a phone mask, so it formatted the phone number, a zip code mask, what are known as input masks. This drop-down menu does the same thing. So we're in good shape there, okay? So we're gonna go back down to the design view, and we're gonna click on part name, all right? And I'm gonna go to another combo box, all right? And I come down to row source. I go over to the right to the little blue thing with the 3 dots, boom. And I'm gonna do parts lookup, we'll add that. And this time I'm gonna put the part name first, and then the part code second, okay? And then I'll run it. And here we're in good shape. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. What we expect. What was that? There's the SQL. Here's one bound column, and we have about one bound column, then we have 2 columns inside of that. And you say, is there any limit to those? The only limit in terms of the number of column counts is just how much clutter you can handle. Now on this, we're going to do 2 inches because we're getting the name of the part. This time is first, okay? And then we'll do a semicolon, and then we'll do 1 inch, and that'll give us the part code. And we'll go back up here, and I'll say save the table, yeah. And now we have this part name, and we have a drop-down menu for it, okay? And there we are. So that's a nice, convenient, way for us to make sure that if we're inputting data, you know, we're in good shape. We're not going to put the wrong code for a particular, for a particular part, or the wrong name for a particular part code. So we have a couple of lookup tables there, and so we've really improved this table quite a bit. We've made everything required. We've used a drop-down menu where we need to help us out in terms of what to input in the data. So far, we've done all that we could do to make everybody happy, okay? So we have the table. Now, I'm going to close this off and save it. And we're going to talk about now these tasks that we have down here in the queries. And you're going to see task 2, 3, 4, and 5. And these coincide, okay, with tasks 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the solve a text, page 180, the bottom of page 184, top of 185, okay? Now, one of the things that will help us a lot is if we learn to kind of reverse engineer stuff, all right? And what will happen is you'll do it enough times that you'll be able just to engineer something. Here's what I mean. Let's open in the design view this query for task 2, okay? You open that up, and we've got several things in here. Now let's talk about it. First of all, let's start with the field. That's the top item. Then what table? Okay? And then you'll notice we've got some things over here that don't have a table. These are called expressions. And I'm going to start with this first one. And I'm going to copy it. And let me say this. If I have to write an expression, I typically go to the notepad and work from there. Some of the products you'll use when you go to work will have a nice what we call query builder that'll work really nicely. The query builder in Excel is a little sketchy, pardon me, in Access, and I don't like it. But here we can see, and let's look at what we've got here in this expression. We're going to create a column or an expression, a value called imp cost. Okay, so we've got imp cost, and then we have the colon, which says, okay, we're about to do something mathematical, and then we choose empire. Notice that we put it inside of brackets so that there's an empire, and then we use the times sign. That's the mathematical operator, the asterisk for multiply. And then we put in unit cost. If you don't spell these correctly, okay, just as they are in the table you're working from, you're going to get a parameter error. The machine will say, I don't recognize this. I haven't seen it. What are you talking about? Okay, now we're going to come to the second one, and this deals with the classical. Okay, and I'm going to copy that up here. And here we have class cost. That's for the classic model. And notice the algorithm. Okay, we've got the class cost. That is the classic times the unit cost. So we're looking at, you remember in our table we had the number of units per part. Okay, so that's the unit cost for a given part, is how many of them we have to have for our component, for our table, for that part, times the unit cost. So as we come down here, we've got the class cost. We can go down, come over here. We can get the Moderna cost. That's another model. And I like to just pull these up and take a look at them. But you can see, you say, okay, can I do some cut and paste here? For sure. Yeah, because I'm using unit cost about 1,000 times here. All right. And here's the Craftsman, which would be the craft cost. Okay. And we'll pop this jewel up there. Okay, you see. And then we've got that. Now we have some type of what we would call an aggregate expression, where we add a bunch of stuff up. And so I'm going to copy that. Now you say, if I had a bunch of these, wouldn't it be just easier if I had like 150 products, wouldn't it be easier just to take this and export it to Excel and then just do the computation and drag and drop it? As I've said before, when it calls for a spreadsheet, use a spreadsheet. When it calls for a database, it calls for a database. We're getting to the point here where, 5, 10, maybe 15 of these is one thing. But when you start to move into a whole lot more, that's the time to export. Okay, that's the time to go back into that table and export the table. Okay, pull out the stuff you want, or you could run a query and then export it to Excel. Do your mathematical applications. Okay, and then be done with it. But I want to show you, how we do this. And remember, we've got to have that name, then the colon, and then we have whatever columns we're using, we have to have them spelled exactly as they are in the table. Okay, so we're good to go there. Now, we're going to run this. All right, and now we have, okay, the part name, okay, and I have my little drop menu. That nice, in case I had to order it or something, I've got that there. I've got the unit cost, okay, the units in stock. And this shows me for Empire, for the 3-foot leg, I need, it's 120 bucks. And then this shows me ultimately how much I've got in inventory, the sum total of all of those. Okay, again, if you had a whole lot more parts, if you had a whole lot more records, or more parts to work with, records, then I say put that puppy over, dump the stuff from Access into Excel. Okay, and then you can always import it back in, and you're in good shape. So we know the value in inventory. Now, one of the nice things about this current version of Access is that we can use summation, and we can use some work here. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come right down here. I'm going to click in that row, and I'm going to click totals. Okay? And right below there, I'm going to put sum. And that will give me the whole total value of the inventory. So I know how much I've got tied up in each of these parts. I know how much I have tied up in the entire inventory. And so this becomes an issue. I get the sum here. Well, I don't need the unit costs. So I'll X that out. I don't need that. But I've got it. Well, let's just put none there. And the units in stock, I want that for sure. That's a meaningful number. And then for Empire, I'll put the sum. And for Classical, I'll have the sum. Same thing here for Moderna. And then this is the same thing for Craftsman. Okay? So I know, here's what I know. I know how much each part costs. I know how much I have in inventory of a particular part. I know how much I have in total inventory. I know how much I have in inventory tied up in each of these types, in each of these products. I got a lot of nice information here. And so that was the kind of thing that was what they were asking for. Okay. And now if I want, I could export this. I could take this and export it to Excel and do some more work. But let me show you here. If someone says, well, what's the average value? Okay. Well, I can, that's simple. I'll just come down here and choose average. Okay. But this case, I've got the sum. Now, I'm going to close this and save it. And then I'm going to open it back up. And there we have it. The earlier versions of Access would let us do the calculation, but it would wash it out when we close the query. Now we've got the advantage of this, and this is much better than what you're going to see. Now I'm going to close this off for a second because I want to open it. Click on the Materials Cost Report. Let's open it up. Okay. Now, as you know, I am a hater of Access's report function, primarily because it's just so unwieldy in getting the thing to handle a lot of units. You can do it, but it takes some time. Now, I'm going to click right up here on the layout. Well, I'll right click it and I'll go to the layout view. And you see, I can take fields and move them, expand them, contract them, etc. All right. I can click on a field and then go into properties. Okay. I've got this here. And so I can do some cosmetics. Now, I can go also go down to the design view. Okay. And every design view is going to have the following: the report header, a page header, the details, and then a page footer, and then a report footer. Now, this stuff over here in the details are what we call unbound text boxes. These have data in them, i.e. details, that we use. Now, you'll notice as you come down here at the very bottom, okay? And I'm in layout, so I'm gonna pull this out. Notice that here's a computational expression or mathematical operation where I equal sum of, okay, in parentheses, then the bracket value in inventory. I've got the same thing for the craft cost, etc. If I wanted to change it to average, I can go in and do it. Frankly, if you're at this point, you're doing this, you probably didn't do your query very well. Now, again, to point out to you, this is the little dots. The lines are for people who wanted to come in and design this to put in pictures, make sure everything is even, all that business. That is not your deal. You just want to make sure the report has the data in it that you need, okay? And I'd say a lot of times you could probably take a query. I'm going to close this off. And I would probably take this, okay, and I'll just open it. And now I would rename this. I would probably copy this and rename it, and then ship it out to Excel. Or I could take a screenshot. and embed it in a report. Okay, doesn't matter. The presentation is the presentation. If I did a screenshot, I would probably want to copy this and then give it a title, rename it with a meaningful title. Okay, and we'll just do that. I'm going to click on here. I'm going to click copy. Then I'm going to click paste. Okay, and I'm going to put this inventory investment. Okay. Now, one of the other reasons that I might go ahead and export this to, I'm going to call this inventory investment. One of the reasons I might think about exporting this to Excel is because then if I want to, I can put this into a pivot table, okay? And I can play around with it a little bit. And there are going to be times when the database will provide you the analytical cube I've talked about, but then the slicing and dicing of it means you're going to come back in and write some more queries, or you can take it and put it into Excel and put it into a pivot table, and it's much more intuitive. There are a lot of people like me. There are some people who are just purists, and they say, well, no, you should just do the query builder and blah, blah, blah. I'm not one of those. I believe use the database for what it's intended to do, and that is to capture and collect stuff and sort it and filter it and get it organized, okay? And then if I want to see how it looks, if I move the variables in rows and columns, okay, put it into Excel with pivot table, and you can't beat it, okay? And that's especially if you're working with a lot of different data. Now here, again, you know, it's an inventory investment. It may not be that meaningful, but at least you understand now why you would do it. And so we've done task number 2. Okay, so far so good. Now we're going to look at task number 3. Now again, we're reverse engineering this. Here we are. Now I'm going to pull this out. Now let me say this. When you go out to work and you're using somebody's database, this is the level, the design level you're working at. It just will have more bells and whistles, okay? It's going to look, it's got more bells and whistles, and it's going to be more intuitive, okay? And you'll probably have a menu driver to determine which tables you want to choose, because depending upon your level, you're only going to be able to look at a certain amount of data. And if you're the database administrator, like we're playing like we are here, you can see everything. But what you'll be able to see will be at a level based on where you are in the company, okay? But that's really so when you encounter these things people call a dashboard, the dashboard is really nothing more than taking data that are down in a database and translating them upstairs into some type of user interface where you can look at those data and see what you're looking at every day. Now, we're going to reverse this. So here we've got the part code. We know that's the field, the part name, okay? And this time we can see we've got the parts required, okay? And we have the total parts required for this, and we can see that it's it's going to be imp partsless plus Moderna, or times Moderna. I think number 2. We did that. So this is 3. This is the Haney company. I apologize. The Haney company, they may have an order, and they want 5 of one model and 38 of the other. They want 38 Moderna, and they want 5 of the Empire. That's how many products, that's how many tables you're going to order. And we'll just scoot this on out here. So we have the units of stock. So we have the total parts required to order, for the order. And remember, our client wanted the Moderna. They want 38 tables, and then the Empire. They want 5 of the Empire model. And you could see, we just simply take that parts and open this back up here, and we could put Empire times 5 and Moderna times 38, and we could get that, the cost for those parts, okay? And then we have the total required, okay? Now, we have one other little thing, and let's go back up to the data sheet view for a moment. Now, we know that we have a certain number of parts required for each model, okay? And we know how many units we have in stock. So we've got to know how much additional do we need, okay, in order so that we can meet this order. Now you say, oh no, this starts to sound like the economic order quantity. It could if you had like annual usage and all that. And at that point I say, take this baby to Excel, do the EOQ over there, and then pop it back in here. But again, you're probably, the database will probably have built into it a base level. In other words, like we're never below, 53 inch, 3 foot legs. But we want to know the difference between these two. So we're going to do a little bit of ledger domain. And so we're going to go down here to the design view, okay? And I'm going to take my cursor, okay? And I'm going to just see what this looks like. Control C. Now I'm going to get, because I'm working another, okay, so I've got total parts required for the order, okay? So I want to get the difference between what's required and on hand. So I'm going to put parts. Do this, parts needed, colon, and then I'm going to put a bracket, okay, and that will be total parts required for order. Control C. I'll put this in here. Order, okay, and then I'll put the minus sign, minus units in stock. Let me get this out here a little bit more so we can see. I'll get this one here. I'll copy that, and so we're going to do an expression, and I'll put in my bracket. So I'm going to say the parts needed, and I'm going to do a mathematical. I'm going to do a mathematical operation. I'll take the total parts required for the order minus the units in stock. Now I'm going to copy all this, and I'm going to put it in this empty column, and let's see what we get. And let's take a look upstairs, and there we are. Okay, so now we know how many parts additionally that we need to order. Now, if we have, we went through that EOQ, the case where we had the inventory in hand and all that business, and we figured, the economic order quantity. The reality is that we're probably going to have parts needed here, okay, and that means we're going to have to probably have base level, probably would have to have another category over here of like base stock level or something like that, okay? And then an order level, okay? So we make sure that we have on hand what we always want to have, a minimum amount, and then we know what we need to order, okay? And so let's say, for example, here we need 122, we have 60 in stock, Okay, so if I want to keep 45 in stock at any time, then what I really do have to order is 60 plus 122 plus the 45, and I could just add that other column and I'm good to go. Okay, and again, if I want to with this query, I can take advantage of this very, very nice feature now that we've got in Excel, and I'll just come up here to the totals, and I'll get the sum. Well, let me ask you. Let me see for a minute. If I really need that. No. Yes, it's stock. No, I would want the third column that would give me. I would have two more columns, just to be clear. I would have a base level, column. What I have to have at any time, at all times, and then a special order column, which would be the parts required for the order. So I would order the 60 plus the 122 plus, say, 50. Yeah. Okay. So I've got, that's task number 3. So and again, we've done some expressions. Okay. And this is okay if we're just doing some simple arithmetic. Now, if we start to talk about stuff like, using square root functions and stuff like that, frankly, I'd say throw it over in Excel and use it, because Excel will pop it up. Databases are a little bit skittish about doing that, although you may have a product, say like SAS, or SAP or Oracle. You may have a product on your desktop that will do that work for you. It just depends on who you're working for. But you're getting to see this at the kind of the base level. So we've got task 3 done pretty well, okay? And I'll save those changes. And then we come to task number 4, and let's go to the design view on it. Okay? And in this case, all right, they want, and well, let me read it to you. It says, Eric Catani has heard rumors that Chapin Milling is having difficulties. They're worried about this, and so they want to know how much stuff is supplied to them by Chapin Milling. Now, their part codes are set up so that their vendors, the first letter is the first name of the vendor. So in this case, it's Chapin. I want to show you something here. I'm going to copy this. We want to find everything that Chapin has that they supply us. All right. And we're going to go in. Now you could see we're going to get the part code from the Abraxas table. We're going to get the part name. And here on the code, we use this like C. Okay, like that. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's intuitive. Okay, like. And then because we're dealing with text or string, not numbers, we put it in parentheses. And then the C, okay, what the C does for us is says, okay, anything that starts with C. Then the asterisk, okay, says pull up everything that's behind the C in a name, okay? And then close the quotes. Now, if I put an asterisk right here, okay, for example, I'm getting everything that ends in C. If I put asterisks around the C, I'll get anything that has C in the middle of it, between the end and the beginning. Okay, so that's just a piece of that business. And so we'll go back up here, and here we are. And these are the parts that are supplied by Chapin. Okay, now I would of course want to go in and name this, and I would want to go in and name this, I'm not going to say this, okay, and there's Chapin, that's what they make, all right, and I would give it a different title. Now, we come over here to question number 5. And this says engineering and design wants the list of the components sorted by value. Create a query and print the result listing. So they want the components sorted by value. Okay. Well, let's look at task 5 and let's see if we can kind of see that reverse engineering it. Now, here it is. I'm using the Abraxas table. Okay. And I've got the part code. Okay. I've got the part name. I've got the unit cost, all right? And if I leave these blank, okay, they will sort, the default is in ascending order. But if I declare something in descending order, in other words, largest to smallest, it'll go that route. So that's what we got going on, and there it is. Okay? And so we see the most expensive part, and its name, and the unit cost. All right, so we have an idea of what we've got there in terms of the bill of materials. Now, the textbook talks about a bill of materials. All right. I want to close this off for just a moment, and let's talk about this. Come back up here to this Abraxas table, okay? Now, this is what we technically have here is the list of the list of their parts, okay, and how much they cost, unit cost, and the units in stock. Fair enough. Now, that's what's really a bill of materials is when I do an order, like we did for Haney. Okay, that's a bill of materials where somebody says, "Here's what I need from you." Okay, and then once we've done the Haney order, and that was number 3, I can then, here's what I need, here's what I've got. I can take that data, all right, and now I know how many parts, parts are needed. Okay, and sum up. Oh. There we go. How many parts are needed? How many are in stock? A bill of materials is going to tell us what we need. Now, in this case, they're getting, now we know the number of parts and what parts they need for Empire and for Moderna, and we know that we need one of them take 38, and the other they want 5. Okay, and that's what a bill. This is roughly an automated bill of materials. It's stretching the term, but we're not too bad. You can go out in the internet and you can see what a bill of materials looks like, a real one, and it's going to have everything listed on it, all of the parts. Okay, now for a customer, like when you order something and you get a list of all the parts and how to put the thing together, they consider that a bill of materials. Okay, now if it includes prices, okay, then you're probably you're wholesaling this to somebody and you see your costs. And you're going to hear some terms like purchase requisition, purchase request, invoice. Let me walk you through those. Purchase requisition. Big companies, okay, they operate departments by budgets. So you send a PR, a purchase requisition, saying, here's what we need. So it can be run at the flagpole and everybody can say, okay, we sign off. So there's no surprise. Then you do the purchase order, okay, and you tell everybody, okay, here's the purchase order. And on that purchase order, typically there will be a number or some designator that says, here is the purchase requisition you originally submitted. So people can go back and they can take a look and compare them, okay? And then you submit the invoice, and the order to, I got that mixed up. You send the order to whoever's going to sell the stuff to you. Now the invoice is what they send back to you. I apologize about it. And that's what you owe them. And they'll give you a detailed list of what you owe in all that business. Okay, so don't get too weirded out by that. Now a receipt is basically nothing more than a proof of payment. Some places will give you a detailed listing. Fast food people today, I had a hamburger and a Coke and all that. Okay, and you'll run into some of that. You'll kind of pick it up as you go along. Well, we've done task number 3. Okay, and I want to say the changes, and we've done task. We looked at the table. Okay, and we've done the part codes. So we've really done a lot of work in terms of improving this thing. Okay, the only thing we could do now, okay, and we'll go back up here, we'll open this up, is the units in stock and unit costs. What we would need right here, okay, is a base level of units, or you could call it base units. How many do I have to have? Okay, and that would be the only improvement that I could see that you need to make. Otherwise, we've run the queries, we've gotten the data that we wanted to get to them. We looked a little bit some more at the a little bit more in terms of the operations. Now, there's one final thing we can do, and two things. Let's close this off for a moment and click create, and we're going to create a form. Okay, as I've told you before, a form is a tool we use to input data, okay, to make it a lot easier. And so when you're out shopping online, for example, and you're buying stuff, you're working with a form that's also a query, because it will choose, and you'll say, I want 5 of these, and they'll tell, well, how much it costs, and then you go to the basket to finish your transaction, or you keep shopping. Okay, that's basically all that's going on there. Well, in general, now programming that is a data management course, which the computer science folks do. Now, like I said, I like the split form, and there's my split form for Abraxas, so I can, if I want, if someone calls in, I can search for the product. I can navigate from the beginning, the first product to the last. I can add. I can see if I do alter how that changes the table, because it will. And this is a really, really, really nice tool that I can use. So I would keep this form, okay? So I'm going to save it. I'll call it Abraxas, right? I want to show you one other final thing that we can do that helps us automate this. I'll go back here. Click on File, then come down to Options, okay? And I want to, let's see, current database. Now, click on current database, and then as you come down here, you're going to see a thing that says display form, okay? And click Abraxas, okay? Click OK, and it'll say you're going to have to close it and reopen it to see this. Click OK, and then we'll close the database, all right? And then we're going to reopen it. And what? Whoop, the wrong one. Hang on here. Oh, don't tell me I didn't do that. All right, let me open this back up. What did I do with that I was working on? Well, let's go back down to Access. There we go. Now, I'm going to make sure I save this on my There, I'm gonna put it on the desktop. Yeah. Okay. I'll close this up. All right. Now this should be Abraxas. And where did you go, you little devil? I think this is it. Now I'll open this up and my form opens up. Isn't that nice? It just simply automates it. Now if I want to, okay, I can live a little more dangerously, or if I want to, I can be a little more creative. And click on create, okay, and create form design. All right, and now in a form design, if we want, we can use some control buttons that will execute a task. Okay, and here's a control button. These are labels. This is a text box. This is a label. The text box is like what we do to do an unbound text to do some computation. Here's a label. Here's a command. I'm going to click command. I'll do this. And it's going to give me the command button wizard. And if I want to, I can say, okay, what do you want? I want to do, let's see. I want to do record operations. Okay. And I want to start with record navigation. And we'll go to the first record. I'll click OK. And it's going to say OK. And we want the first. We're good. And then we can click that. And we'll go back up to the view. And we should be able to click it and get something in. What did I not do there? Well, I'll go back and play around with it a little bit. I just don't create many forms like that. I try to use the wizard, but if I want something open, it's just a lot easier if you're just working with Access to do it like we did. So we're good there. And close that jewel off, and then we'll open it back up to make sure we're good. We've got our form open. Oh, now we could add some more. We can add some command buttons, and I'll play around with this a little bit more as we go along in some later cases, so you can see that done. But you can see this is nice. It pops up. We've got our table, so somebody calls in, we can find out, how much we need to order, what's it going to cost them, and all that business. All right. Let's see here. Are we good? Okay. I think we're in pretty good shape. And now, here's what will happen. Okay. Next week, Section B that meets on Monday, we'll do case 4, excuse me, and then I'll link that. I'll put that video in for you guys, so you'll see case 4, and then next Wednesday we'll start on 5. We're moving a lot faster than I thought we would, but I thought I'd get more questions, but I'm not getting them. So let's see who is here. Alyssa, glad to have you here, and I'll tell you what, I think that will just about do it. So everybody if you watch this before you leave, be safe on the way home. And I think we're going to call it a day here. Anybody have a question? Question? Okay. And let's see here. I'm going to stop the share. And then we'll stop the recording.